Well, hello again, friends. A long time no see. I know it has been a little while since I've made a video, but I am back now that we have some content to actually talk about. And this video is going to be a little different. I know I'm used to the long videos, but I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can. But this video, I want to talk about the power distribution systems on our ships. Now that in 3.24.2, a lot more components actually seem to matter. That is, shields matter again. They have hit points. Your power plants really matter. Coolers not so much. And of course, your weapons have mattered for quite a little while, a couple patches now. And I want to talk about, I guess, how to manipulate the system and understand how to outfit your ship correctly, or at least in my interpretation. I'm bound to get something wrong. So I'm going to try to do this without spreadsheets, and we're going to get on some websites and check some of this stuff out. And we're going to look at how it affects the ship as well. So stay tuned for that. Roll the intro. Okay, folks, so here is the RSI Zeus, and this ship is in its complete stock configuration. And I want to go and just, as a precursor, show you what this looks like. If you don't own a Zeus, then I guess it doesn't really matter, but it applies for every ship. And I chose this ship because it has more than one power plant. Okay, so I did just swap out all my components for the stock components. We'll go ahead and start the ship up. Okay, quick cut there. I forgot to put my helmet on because that's how it casts information now with your helmet. So anyway, the ship is now on, and I want to go over to the left MFD here to the power management side. We are in SCM mode, and we're going to try to zoom in a little bit so you guys can actually see what's going on. So notice this is the power management screen. If you are not familiar with it, this is new, and you can see the various components that require power, right? Those are our two coolers. They are fully powered. This is the radar. That is the life support generator. It only has one unit instead of two. It has a total of 2 units that it could have. This is the quantum drive. Because we're in SCM, the quantum drive is not powered. And then we have the big 3, right? We have shields, engines, and guns. So we can also see up here under output that we have 0 power slots available out of 22 total slots. What we don't have anymore, and I don't love this, is that we don't really have a component health indicator, and that may come on some kind of an engineering screen. But we used to have that, and now we don't really have that anymore. So I guess you're going to know with your ship status how your components are faring, or with an engineering screen. But regardless of that, one of the big things now is power output, right? So this is a completely balanced ship in this aspect, and it's completely stock right now too. You can see that there's each one of these shields. I have 3 shield generators on the Zeus. Each one of the shields takes up, it requires 2 power slots in order to power. If I was going to take one down, I would get 2 power slots back. And then I could then put one of them into guns and another one into guns. Well, what does that actually do? That's a good question. Let me go ahead and I'm going to reset my power. So now I put those things back into my shields, and I'll just go ahead and fire real quick. Okay. Notice we have, kind of hard to see up here, 10 out of 10 on the top left, 10 out of 10 shots. If either we hit F5 on the keyboard to give more juice to guns, like normal, like we've been doing for a while. And you can see over here on my power management that my guns have way more juice now. Now, if you look at my MFD or my cast on the top left, I have 15 out of 15 shots. So just like before, when you give more power to guns, you will have more shots, and they will recharge faster as well. F6 gives more power to engines, which presumably will let us go faster, although I'm not flying right now, so I can't necessarily test that out. But it'll take power away from shields and give it to your engines. And then if we reset and we go and we try to give power to our shields, we're going to reduce our engines and our guns, and then we can just keep powering our shields. You're always going to have a minimum of 1 on your guns and your engines, but look, my shields can get up really pretty high. I'm almost maxed out on power. I have 2 more I could put in there, but I don't have any spare power to go. If I wanted to fully max that out, I could probably take one off of coolers and maybe one out of life support, and then I have 2 to go, and I can fully shield out the ship. Well, what does that do? Well, as far as I know, my shield hit points did not change, but my shields will recharge faster. So when I take some shots, it'll be less of a cooldown before they will start to recharge, and they will recharge faster. That is the benefit of doing that. So resetting everything back to normal. My guns are going back up to 10 shots. That is the power management in a nutshell, and you can sit here and play with it and do different things. But we're now going to go look at Erkul.games and SC Performance Viewer, and we're going to see the differences in what can happen and some of the different components, and just how you are going to figure out how to outfit your ship. Now, this is patch as is. I'm sure this will change in the future, so take this with a grain of salt. This is accurate at least for 3.24.2. And if you can hear that noise in the background of the Zeus while I'm in the cockpit, that is the most annoying sound in the world. And this was going to be one of my daily drivers, but I'm thinking about not anymore because that sound is super annoying. CIG, please take that out. Anyway, let's cut over to me and let's look at some gun stat or some stats on components. All right, everybody. So here we are at a familiar site, especially if you're a fan of my channel. We're here at Erkul.games, and yeah, we're gonna notice there's a new layout on Erkul. There is this whole power output deal over here, this piece of the UI. And I've been trying to figure this out, so I think we're going to try to figure it out together, even though I've done some research. Brought up is the same ship I have as the demo in the video, the Zeus Mark II ES, the Explorer Zeus. And this is the stock configuration. Not so concerned with the ship stats, as that'll be in a different video that reviews the Zeus ES and the CL. But no, I really want to talk about power. Shields, power plants, coolers, weapons, things like that. So a couple of the new things on Erkul. You have your weapons up here. Obviously the Omni Sky 12s, and the remote turret has the 2 Panthers, but you have an efficiency bar up here. We know right now, it'd be nice if Erkul told us how many shots we have, but we know right now this is 10 shots, right, in this configuration. We also have a cooler efficiency bar, which I'm not sure that's necessarily needed at this point, but how efficient are your coolers in whatever configuration you're in? So let's start playing around. First thing to notice is our output power is, obviously we're full, like we have all of our power spoken for. Out of 22 different units. So out of those 22 units, this is how it's configured in, at least in Erkul. I'm not sure if this is how it's configured in the game. We'd have to mess around with it. But this could be how it's configured in the game. Okay, messing around too much. So the first thing you're probably going to want to do is look at what power plant you have installed. So Power plants we have installed are these full forces. They are two size 2s on the Zeus Mark II, which is a size 3 ship. They are civilian grade C. Over here on the right, we can see that they put out 18 max power generation per power plant. Now, when I was trying to figure out this output number, I'm like, well, 18 plus 18 is not 22, right? It's a little higher than that. So it's like, okay, so how is this number created? And I did a little bit of research on Reddit, at least. And some people did the math, apparently, and they have kind of reverse engineered the formula, which is, I'm not going to put it on the screen, but for N power plants, you know, X, Y, Z, the power segment number is, you have to take the power plant, right? So let's say the 18 divided by the number of power plants. And then you add that times the next power plant, which is power plant Y, right? Divided by the number of power plants plus the next power plant. If you have some ships have 4, 5 power plants, then you keep doing that until you finish with your N number of power plants, and then you add that to N minus 1 times the size of your power plant. So, and then things are rounded as well. So it's kind of a complicated formula, but Erkul has it. And so does SC Ships Performance Viewer, I believe. But Erkul has been accurate as far as I've tested personally in the game with a couple different ships. So you'd be okay to rely on Erkul for this total output number here on the screen. So with that being said, now we can start messing around with our power plants. Well, who wants a civilian grade C when we can just get a military grade A? Now there are two military grade A's, JS 400 and the Quadricell MT. They're actually, at least right now, they are stat wise, they're identical. So either way you go, they're the same power plant, but they are the military grade A's. They give you a max power generation of 20. Well, 20 and an 18 raises our total output from a 22 to a 23. What happens if you grab both of them? Okay, if you grab both of them, now you're at a 20 and a 20. Well, you're not at a total of 40, you're at 24. So it raised it up by 1 twice. So now I have 2 more power units to use to spread around my ship. Well, if everything else stays the same, like my weapons are now more efficient. They went up a number, and I believe so did engines. So now engines, my ship should be a little bit faster, and my weapons should probably go up to 13 shots instead of 10. That's just by upgrading the power plants, which is fantastic, right? But now we got to talk about other components, right? We have to talk about shields. Well, these stock shields, these are Shamali shields. They are civilian grade C. They have 4,430 hit points apiece, giving us a total stock hit points of 17,720 over here on the left side of the screen. Okay. Well, what you can also see that they require, each of these requires a power of, it says, Erkul says 3, but it looks like on the screen it's a 2. So let's say, for instance, it's a 2. And it also looks like it requires some cooling of a 3. But I don't know. I don't know if that system is actually fully implemented in the game yet. That may really be where the coolant comes in, because from what I've read, you can fly around without coolers on at all and get the extra power boost, and you'll be fine. Your shields aren't going to go away. Your weapons aren't going to go away. The only difference with not having coolant, or your coolers on, is your IR, your infrared emissions go really high. And if you don't care about stealth at all, which you probably shouldn't if you're PvE, then okay, turn them off. You don't need them, at least in this patch of the game, but you may need them at some point, or if you're going to PvP, you're going to want better coolers. So, well, now notice our full charge is 49 point, let's just say 49 seconds. Well, now shields are different hit points, finally. So if we go with a military grade A shield like an FR-76, well, now our charge time changes to 45 seconds. That's basically, I think, if you get hit, you have to recharge your shields. That's also without full power into shields. That's with your basic even power here with these new power plants. So our shields went up by almost 1,000 hit points, right? So we were at 17 something. We were at 17,720 with a charge in 49.16 seconds, and now we're charging in 45.75 seconds, and we have more shields, or total shield hit points. So it's, again, this is work in progress as well. And it also says that these shields require 4 power units, but on the screen it's showing a 1. So I'm not sure if Erkul has this correct. If we move everything to FR-76s, notice when I do the third one, it's kind of probably hard to see on the screen. When I do the third one, the weapons efficiency is going to go down. Boom. So when I do a third military grade A shield, the weapon efficiency went down because we had to take a piece of power from the weapon efficiency and move that into shields. And same thing happens. I mean, it doesn't happen again, but it's still there. The weapon efficiency is still down, and all 4 shields are military grade A. So now it's like, okay, so now I have all grade A components and all this stuff. Well, what about our coolers? These cold snap civilian grade C's require 3 power. Well, if we go to the Avalanche, which is military grade A, well, they require 4 power, but they're giving you 28.8 cooling. Well, who cares if we don't need the cooling? And again, I think this is a system that it's not fully implemented. But our efficiency on our coolers are way down if we go with 2 avalanches, and our weapons efficiency is also down. So this is all in math and formulas and all that fun stuff. And I just let Erkul do all the work for me. So what I have found basically is I'm going to keep my stock coolers, at least for now, and not mess with them. If I want to just turn them off, I'll just turn them off and use that power. My power plants, looks like the best power plant all around is the military grade A's. The JS400s, the quadricell MTs. You could go for like the civilian grade A, which is 19 power generation, over your stock power plant. But the best power plants are actually competition power plants. So if you look at LuxCore, which is competition grade A, that gives us 21 power generation. And notice our output power increased to 25. If we do 2 of those, now our power generation is at 26. And now we can have these FR-76s, 4 of them, maxing out our shields at 20,400 shield hit points. Our guns are fully efficient, and I don't even think we actually need the coolers yet, but one day we will. And I don't know, maybe we go into, if we look at our competition coolers, the Absolute Zero is the size 2 coolers. They provide so much cooling, and we're still at 26 for these. For power generation, so much cooling, but then our weapon efficiency goes down. So it's kind of weird getting these combinations to go with each other. The military grade A's for the coolers require the most power. So to be quite honest, I'm not sure what to do with the coolers. I'm looking for advice from you guys. Do we go with a lower grade with like a smaller power requirement, or is the minimum? It looks like the minimum power requirement's 3, unless we go stealth. If we go stealth, do we go with something like the Nightfall? I like that. That's only a power requirement of 2. Our efficiency's not really good, but I mean, looks like we're okay. I don't know, we're over 50% cooling. So do our shields turn off if they're not cool? I don't know. More testing is needed, but trying to figure these numbers out is kind of a mini game unto itself. So, and of course our quantum drive, we're going to go with our XL1 or the Jaeger. Any of the military drives are good for the Zeus because it has a size 2 drive. I'm not really going to go over weapons and stuff, but some, I guess I'll go over very quickly. Some weapons require, of course, ballistics require like no power because they're ballistic, but they're limited. But if you have lasers and laser cannons, the OmniSky has a requirement of 1.3. The M6, 1.3, so all these are 1.3s. The repeaters, actually, sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Some of these have higher power requirements. The Quarreler, 2.25. The Light Strike, 1.8. The M6, 1.3. The M6 does the most damage, so, but it has the least amount of shots. So it's very odd here to pick. The repeaters, looks like they still have roughly the same power requirements here. It's like I said, it's its own mini game to figure this out. If we go with the attrition 4s, 1.45 power requirement compared to 1.45 power requirement compared to 1.3 for the OmniSkies, but more DPS, and it's faster, and it has more ammo because it's a repeater. So pick your poison on these. Getting the power requirements and all that stuff down is kind of its own thing. But why should I choose a military grade A component over a civilian grade A component or all that kind of stuff? Well, Erkul does tell us, and it gives us some information, but it's kind of limited. So let's go over here to the left, and we're going to click on shields. So we're going to click on size 2 shields. We're going to go to grade A components. Of course, grade B, C, D, they all have everything, but that's too many to compare. So looking at grade A components, we have civilian, military, industrial, and stealth. Well, what are the differences between all these things? So, of course, our military components are going to have near the highest amount of hit points. Our industrials are going to have the highest amount of shield hit points. Our civilians, the third most, respectably, and the worst being the stealth shields, right? These are for hit points. Then we have maximum shield generation. Right? I don't know if this is in seconds or what necessarily that number is, but the highest again is industrial, second highest military, etc. Then it has power consumption and cooling consumption. Until the coolant mechanic is fully integrated, I'm not even worried about it, but the power consumption, it says 4, but does it actually take 4 to power that shield fully? I don't know. And that's not quite what I'm seeing transferred onto the screens. This may be a case, and this is the big if of this whole thing, is the reason that the shields have the formula, the power plants have the formula, is not, it's not an addition type of formula, is due to redundancy. It is not due to, hey, I have, maybe your capacitor can only handle so much, but it's hard to explain this sometimes. If you lose a power plant, you still need to be able to fly your ship. So if you have 2, that's fantastic, because one of them can now give you 20 power units, which that's by itself. And that's enough to do a lot of stuff with the ship. versus if you have both of them sharing the load at basically 60% is what they share it at. That reduces, you know, you can't max it out. I can't get 40 units of power in the game right now because they're sharing the load. I can get 20 out of just one of them, but I can't get 40 out of both of them together. And that's a redundancy thing. It's a backup type of thing. If something happens to your ship, one of them goes down for wear and abuse or whatever, or gets blown up, whatever the case may be, your ship will still function. Now, when you take a ship like the Vanguard, they have one power plant. So if you lose the power plant, you're dead in the water. You're not doing anything because nothing has power. So that kind of stuff matters, and it should matter when you are picking what ship you want to buy /fly/upgrade. So here's the power consumption stuff. There's a bunch of other stats in here. I don't love the way Erkul does this. I like the way SC Performance Viewer does it better. So we're going to switch over to them. We are going to go look at items. We're going to bring up shields. No. Then we're going to look at size 2s. We're going to look at grade A's. Okay, so we're back to looking at shields again. And I just like the way SC Performance Viewer lays out all their stuff here. Sorry if this is small on screen. It's better, and the websites will be linked in the description. It's better when you actually go to it and do your research. So again, we can see the shield pools are different. The regen rates are different. The regen times are all the same for all the shields. The damage delay is all the same. The down delay is all the same. The nav to SCM reserve pool, which is how you power up your shields when you're in reserve and you're going from nav mode to SCM mode, those are different between the 4 shields, with the highest being in industrial, second highest being in military. And then the regen times are all the same. So if you're switching over and your shields are building up and you get shot a couple times, that could matter. Your resistance is all the same. Distortion damage is the same. Absorption, distortion resistance, all those stats are the same. The electromagnetic emissions are different between them. Of course, stealth has the least amount, 268, which is super low. Civilian second best, military third best, and industrial first. And then the IR emissions, they're all 0 for shields. And then it talks about power segment usage. So there's a power consumption piece over here, which is like they're all going to use, well, at least that was on Erkul. They're all going to use 4 or something like that. And then over here on SC Performance Viewer, it's like how power segment usage, cooling usage. Okay, so for the FR-76, it uses 1 power segment, and that's what I've seen in the game and in the Erkul diagram, basically. When I'm back up here, switch to a different screen. Oh, I should have kept the other screen up. Here's the Zeus. When I have all FR-76s, these are all 1 units here, versus the 2 units when I have different stuff in there. Even though this has a power requirement of 4 on Erkul, it looks like it's really the 1. That's a benefit of the military version of it, and it lets you configure it a little bit easier. It doesn't require a minimum of 3. So that's a downside of the industrial. It requires a minimum of 3. Let's throw an industrial on here. And I believe it's the Ramparts, the grade A. Again, it says power requirement of 4, but we can see over here, Erkul needs to update their stuff. It requires a minimum of 3 on the graph, basically. So at least that part is kind of halfway up to date. The description's not up to date. And then the max, maybe it's the maximum that they're talking about. So the maximum that the power can use per shield for military and the Ramparts, or I'm sorry, for the military and the industrial is 4. And we have a maximum on the Umbra, which is the stealth of a 2. Let's see what that shows up as. Yeah, that's a 2. So maybe this number down here under Umbra is the max. Okay, moving on. The minimum cooling usage for all of these are 0. 0. So you don't actually need to cool them down, I guess. Maybe that will affect how fast they recharge or something like that. But there is no overheating in 3.24.2. So you can't overheat your ship. You can overheat your guns. You can't overheat your ship. Your IR emissions will go way out of whack if you turn off those coolers. So they also have maximum cooling usage. I think that's the system that's going to be developed in time. And okay, shields temperature, our starting temperature, our IR threshold. These are all the same through all the shields. And then we have the health pool. How much damage can the actual component take before it's done? And the highest one in this is military, which makes sense. Second highest is industrial and civilian, and then stealth. And all the damage multipliers are the same. And then there's a stat over here called lifetime. I don't know what lifetime means. Is that a secondary stat? Is that how long you can run it before it dies? I don't really necessarily know what that means. So I'm gonna think of it as a secondary health stat, not physical health, but maybe how long you can run it. Because the industrial components, you're supposed to be able to run for a long time without them needing a lot of maintenance. And that makes sense here because the industrial is a 59, civilians a 50, military is the third worst at 36, the worst would be stealth. And then there's a mass. The masses are, I mean, we're talking minor numbers here. And then the micro SCU that they take up, the space they take up is all the same because they're all the same actual size. So here you go. This is why you should pick different shields for different properties of the shields. And then we could go down to grade B and we can compare all these as well and compare A's to B's and all that kind of stuff. But you might want to look at, if I can find it, under propulsion, go to power plants. And now we can compare grade A's, size 2s. So now we're looking at actual power plant comparisons. And here's our JS400. Here's our quadricell MT. We can see that the highest segment generation of power plants is the competition power plant. So the racing power plant gives you the highest amount of power, which is actually pretty cool. You can put the most of that into engines because you're really not going to be shooting weapons and you don't necessarily need shields when you're racing. You need a lot of engine. But why would I choose competition instead of military? I think it's a fair question. So we know the competition gives us the most amount of power generation. It is what it is. The stealth gives you the least, the civilian second least, military and industrial are the same, and competition's the most. The cooling consumption is a little bit different, but again, I don't think that has much to play in here, but it's the same as the power sticks, the segment generation. The shutdown damage for distortion and all that is the same throughout all these power plants. The EM emissions are different from each one of the power plants, with the stealth being the least amount, really low at 133, and the highest being the industrial. Oh, well, no, the military is the highest at 790. And then you can do EM emissions. That's per segment, by the way. All segments, they add all those together. So you can reduce your EM emissions by turning off just one segment of a piece of a power plant. If that makes sense. So if you have your power plant fully utilized, then you're going to be at your max EM emissions. If you have only some systems turned on, then each segment, you're going to get that much EM per segment, which is actually really cool for stealth. And That's going to be a future video once we kind of figure out how the cooling works, because that really affects stealth. So I'm going to hold back on doing a stealth video this patch cycle until we know more information. I may do a quick one, but who knows? What else? How else do these things compare to each other? Well, the health, of course, is the temperature is all the same. The IR is all the same. They're all zeros because it's a power plant. The health is different, with the military having the most hit points, industrial the second most, same as the shields. Damage multipliers are all the same. And then the lifetime stat is, once again, it's the same thing. It's like, how long can you run this thing for until it needs maintenance or has to be repaired? The Genoa, the industrial one, is the highest at 59. Then the competition, the Lotus, is a 47, giving it second place. And then the military ones, and then the competition was the Lux Core, right? What was the Lotus? The Lotus is a civilian drive. So, okay, so different stats in there for lifetime. Masses are different. But the health on the competition drive, 630 compared to the rest, like 1700, 1400, means it cannot take a licking and keep on ticking. It'll go quickly. And the Lux Core has the least amount of lifetime. So you're going to have to do the most maintenance on it, repair it the most often, and it has the least amount of hit points it can take as well. But you do get one more power generation than a military grade A. And that may be worth it, so you could run the best shields and all that other stuff. And I'm sure all these things are subject to change. So, back to Erkul. So now you can play with this, and this output graph here, it's really good. So mess with it, play with it, change it around, figure out how you want to set up your ship, and then buy the components as necessary, because you can drop all your things into the cart. And see where you can go buy all these things. It's an invaluable tool. If you want more information on the components per component, head over to SCE Ship's Performance Viewer. It's a fantastic website as well. You can also look at per ship, like stats per ship. I don't love the way it does its power, because it assumes that you're going to max a bunch of things out, and you can sit there and play with it. And take everything off and mess with it just like you can on Erkul. But Erkul seems to be a little bit easier to do with that. You can do there's a lot of stats on here, and this website is a fantastic second option for me compared to Erkul. What else? I did want to show you another size 3 ship. This one, like a fighter, right? So if we go to a Vanguard Warden, well, the Vanguard Warden only has one power plant, so it has a size 2 Maelstrom, giving us 19 power generation. And notice our output is 19. If we go to the competition drive, Lux Core is 21, and it gives us 21 power units. That's just how it is, right? But if you lose that power plant, your ship's dead in the water. You have no power to power any systems, including engines. If we go to a different ship, like a much bigger ship, let's go to a Carrack. Okay, well, it has 2 power plants, so there's some redundancy built in. These are industrial grade B reliances. They're size 3 components, and it has up to 30 power plant. There is no competition for a Carrack for size 3 components here. So we could probably go to like our military, our JS500s. Let's do that. Okay, so now we have 24 max power generation. Oh, it's still at an output of 30. So bumping up those power plants didn't give us anything extra. So do we need to even do it? Probably not. But if we lost one with the military component, we would have one more to help our crippled ship survive. So again, I really want these tools to be more integrated into the game so that we know what these stats do. I want to see the screen up there say plus, minus. This is what you get when you swap out this power plant with this power plant. Like, game mechanics that have been around for 20 years, that needs to be in the game. I need to understand that what a military component is compared to an industrial component, the benefits of using industrial or using military, what the pluses and minuses is for each one, and these should be on a hover or by swapping it around. Here's your ship stats over here, and by putting this in here without committing your changes, this is what your stats become. All that needs to make its way into the game, and I have not seen anything by CIG that says it's going to. I do hope it comes pre 1.0 at some point, not to make Erkul irrelevant, but I need that stuff in the game because I need to make those decisions in the game. I love using Erkul, but it needs to be in the game, right? It has to be in the game, or else what is the point of doing this? Just to keep a website alive? But right now, thank goodness we have Erkul. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our Zeus and we're going to throw those components into it and show you in the game the change in the power plants and in our output power, and mess with a few more things, and then we'll end the video. Thanks for sticking around. I know I kind of bounced all over the place, but I don't think people quite knew, at least I didn't know, but I think it's confusing. CIG does not explain this stuff. We just have the general notion of what things are going to do, and now we have more information based on actual stats. So go forth and use Erkul NSC Ships Performance Viewer. Back to me. All right, folks. So now we're here looking at the Zeus loadout, and I wish they would fix this blob that's on my screen, but regardless of that, now we can change some of our systems around now that I think we understand it a little better. So first off, the coolers, I still don't think they really matter unless you're in PvP. If you guys know of why they would necessarily matter in this patch, if not to just reduce emissions, please let me know. But as far as I can tell, coolers don't even matter. Like, you don't even need coolers right now to fly the ship because of the way the coolant is set up. Apparently there's going to be a future coolant thing coming out, but from what Erkul has told me, the civilian grade A Alphys is the best cooler in this scenario, not the Avalanche grade A militaries, which is interesting. The Zeus has 2 power plants, so it comes with these grade C civilian full forces. And if you remember, we had a total of, I believe, 22 power units when we were using those. We're going to, because I have them available, we're going to upgrade to JS 400 military grade A power plants for both. Of course, we're going to upgrade our quantum drive from the grade C civilian chaos to an XL1 because I have a bunch of them. And then here's the other thing, the shield generators. What do we put on here? Do we go with the Lorica generators? Do we go with the actual military grade A FR-76s, or do we do some kind of a combination? I think it really depends on what you want to have your shield output as, if that makes sense. You want to have your, I mean, do you want more shields? Do you want more guns? What do you really want to do here? Is there a mix? Can we get the best of both worlds? I believe when I was doing it in Erkul, if I went full FR-76s, even with the upgraded power plants, it reduced the efficiency of my guns because these shields need so much more. But when I went with the, at least one of them, Lorica, or 2 of them as a Lorica, the civilian, it kept the efficiency of my guns higher. So for right now, just humor me, I'm going to put 2 grade A civilian shields on there and 2 grade A military shields on there. And that's going to give us a total of around 19,680 shield hit points. 4 shield generators. I mean, as far as guns, we're going to keep our stock guns on here. The Omni Sky 12s for both the pilot guns, and then the turret guns are going to stay as the 337s. The jump drive, yeah, okay, I'll put the jump drive on there. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep the stock livery. So we'll go ahead and install those. Now they're in, and let's go ahead and we'll call the ship back up, and let's go check out what's actually in the ship. All right, so we're headed back towards the Zeus here. We're gonna crawl up this ladder. I have my helmet on this time, so I shouldn't have an issue with the MFD cast. Let's go see how much different it is inside. And there we go. Okay. Turning my engines on. Okay, so now we can come over here to this MFD, our power management, and notice we have 24 total output units instead of 22 with a stock configuration. My guns, if you look at my MFD cast on the top left, I still have 10 shots. So, okay, upgraded the power plants and all that, but now I also upgraded the shields. So these 2 shields down here, these are the military shields. They require 2 units of power. If we were going to have 4 of these, they would have required an extra unit of power right here, and it would have taken away from something. And I think by default, at least via Erkul, it takes away one of the guns and it puts it into the shields. So then I would only have 7 shots on my guns. You could obviously just take that from engines. You could take it from other systems as well. Right here we have, you know, our radar requires 3 units of power. Our life support only requires 1. Not sure why 2 is up there or what the second one gives us. Maybe if we have more than 1 person on the ship. So if we, and we're also in a suit, so maybe we take one of those down and we throw it into guns. What does that get us on guns? Oh, it goes us from 10 to 13 shots. That's kind of nice. But again, our coolers, we can actually, like, let's take our coolers offline. Can we just take them out? I think if we click this, we'll just take them offline. And notice our EM is going down, but our IR is going way up. So this will affect your stealth, but I don't think in this pack should actually affect your flight. So now we have 6 units available. So what can we do with those 6 units? Well, okay, let's put some more into guns. We could put some more into engines. We could put more into shields. I mean, that's maybe significant. Now I have 15 shots. And let's go ahead and just like, oh, why does the cross? Oh, there we go. I got taken off. So now look, we're up and we're flying around the hangar. And I don't necessarily see us not being able to fly around without the coolers. Now our IR on here is kind of going crazy. It's up at 95, 96, going up to 97. So I don't know. I'll have to do some further testing to see if this actually affects our IR in any way. I mean, being able to fly with the IR. But we're going to go ahead and land the Zeus. And there we go. And I'll just go back to default power configuration. And I think, and that kept our coolers unpowered as well. Interesting, because I actually physically turned them off. So if I hit F8 again, it'll probably power them fully, yeah. And our IR is dropping significantly. So interesting kind of take on this. If I switch into nav mode, everybody knows now it turns off your shields and it powers your quantum drive, which requires a bunch of power. A lot of different units here. So I mean, and we're back at, and obviously you can't fire your weapons. We're back at 0 out of 24 available. So anyway, that is that. All right, so that is the power management video with components, and I'm interested to see what you guys have gleaned. Did I get anything wrong here? Am I still in speculation? Have you figured out anything with coolers other than PvP, at least right now? It's an interesting time in Star Citizen, and I think things are going to change much more in upcoming patches. I really want to see a huge difference in segregation in between military and grade A through D components, in wear, in abilities, in the way we can upgrade them, in availability, meaning you can't get grade A components unless you go to a certain place or do a certain mission. Maybe it's a quest reward. That would be pretty neat and make them much more valuable, as well as the crafting aspect. So I am Fist-25. Thank you for tuning in to the video. I guess we'll see you on the next one. Don't forget, Jawa and I stream every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Mountain on Fisting Jawa. Save the universe with the B team, second best org in the verse, and Jawa streams 9 a.m. Sundays Mountain Time with Jawa, our chill, kind of relaxed mining or salvage or hangout stream. And other than that, I guess we'll see you around in the verse, fellow citizens. I am Fist-25, signing out. Good night, Stanton.